Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you on this fine day. Appreciate you stopping by, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're watching the show anywhere you may scroll. Certainly do appreciate it. Again, especially on a holiday as today. You got a lot of things going on. Fact that you're spending a little bit of time with me means the world to me. I wish we could be meeting under better circumstances, but that's, kind of the utility of this format, isn't it? To be able to get through some trying times when it comes to our local sports teams. But if you'd like to sound off, the lines of communication are wide open for you. You could call or text into the show at 719 24/7 1313, or you could just drop a comment if you are watching the show on the live stream. So let's get into it here. No veritable cornucopia of sports topics. It's one topic. It's one game. It's one series that we are discussing here. This series may end up costing Jared Bednar his job, ultimately. Going back to game 2, ESPN showed a video of Joe Sakic's reaction, I assume from the end of the game or thereabouts. But when it is less relevant than the look I saw on Joe Sakic's face, who is still the president of hockey operations. He's still the boss when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche. And the look I saw on his face after game 2 was that of disgust. Was that of, this is completely unacceptable, what I am watching from my hockey team. And then the Avalanche topped it in game 3. That second period of game 3 is going to go down as an all-timer. It's going to be forever held up as the standard to which any other playoff failures that this organization has had or will have is going to be measured against. Nothing so far has beaten that, and I shudder to think if something will end up beating that somewhere down the line. The first period of game 3 looked exactly like it should. Right? No notes. Yeah, a couple of defensive breakdowns, but Scott Wedgwood made tremendous saves. The Avalanche dominated the first period, which is what they should do when they are down 2-0. The desperation level has to be through the roof with this team, and they responded exactly how you wanted them to in the first period. And they weren't going, it appeared like they weren't going to let Vegas hang around like they did in game 2. That was the issue in game 2. Avs did good enough in the first period, scored the first goal, had the lead for most of the game. They just couldn't get that second goal. And you let a team like Vegas hang around, and you're just asking for what happened in game 2 to happen. But the Avs get one, they get a second, they get a third, and it's like, okay, lesson learned. They're going to put this Vegas team away. Because the Avs come back from 3-0 deficits. They don't give up 3-goal leads. Come on. With everything we have seen in just a short time in this series, no way the Avalanche would give up a 3-0 lead. And the reason why is not anything anti-Vegas. It's surely in the second period and beyond, they're going to keep their foot on the gas. I'm not saying that game last night should have ended up 9-0. But there's a way for the Avalanche to keep Vegas down. And probably get another goal or two, which, look, when you're down 2-0 and you lose both of those games at home, you can't win more than just one game in game 3, but you can send some messages, right? Playing a complete 60-minute effort against Vegas, keeping them pinned down, maybe even shutting them out, maybe winning 5-0. You not only send a message that foolishness that happened in the first 2 games, that's over, but you also put a thought in the back of Carter Hart's head. Because I said going into the series that Carter Hart is capable of what he did in game 1. And I thought he was going to steal a game for Vegas in this series. But I also said he's capable, if you put him under enough duress consistently enough, that he might implode. And you might force Vegas to contemplate putting Adin Hill in the goal. The Avs could have done that last night. And it would only count as 1 win, but it would have a ripple effect for game 4 and beyond. But they did none of that. They came out in the second period and they just completely let up. Stop pushing as if it was job done. They went into the locker room in between the first and second period and said, good job, boys. We got to win. Now let's get ready for game 4. And Vegas wasn't having that. And the thing that, among many others, that drives you nuts if you're an Avalanche fan, this has been the conversation of this series. 60 minutes is required. 60 minutes of all-out effort is required. Anything less than that. Game 2 showed you that anything less than that is going to cost you. And just because you have a 3-0 lead, it doesn't change. If I promise you, if the Avalanche come out in the first 5 minutes of the second period like they came out in the first period, they would have put Vegas away. Vegas would have been like, you know what? We're good here. We did our job. We'll bounce back and still have a 3-1 lead if we win game 4. They could have put Vegas away. But they had nothing in the first 9 or 10 minutes of that period. And Vegas had to be saying to themselves, man, they're just going to let us come back on them? I mean, this is not a team that you want to trifle with. And that was always the case. Yes, it appeared that the Avalanche on paper were better than Vegas. But how much have we talked about how this was a different test than Minnesota or LA? This was a different caliber, a different breed of hockey team. You can't let up. And they completely let up in that second period. And Vegas, as they have done all series long, which is only 3 games old, it feels like we've been watching 10 games of this nonsense. They made them pay every mistake, every shift that they kind of phone it in. Vegas pounces and scores a goal. And therein lies why Jared Bednar might lose his job over this. You want a case in point of a message growing stale, falling on deaf ears. Jared Bednar has talked about nothing else other than 60 minutes. He has harped on it over and over and over again. And 3 games in, the message still hasn't landed. And I'm sorry, at the risk of ignoring never say never, it's too late. It's too late for this team now. I think Jared Bednar is saying the right things. I don't think his team is internalizing them. And that is the quintessential sign of we got to make a change. You know, Vegas fired Bruce Cassidy. And this is where it's even worse for Jared Bednar because they're playing a team that fired their coach with 8 games left in the season. We're seeing what a coaching change, even as late in the season as Vegas made it, can pay dividends. So it is not the right opponent to be doing this against. But Vegas fired Bruce Cassidy in part, and I've heard from a lot of Vegas fans on social media that one of the big sticking points was his Bruce Cassidy's unwillingness to go to Carter Hart and goal. So it's not just one reason, but one of the reasons stated by Knights GM Kelly McCrimmon is that the Golden Knights lost their energy and spirit. That's what Kelly McCrimmon said. That is exactly what happened to the Colorado Avalanche last night. They lost their energy and they lost their spirit. Here's Jared Bednar, if you don't believe me.
As low as it can get, because you got a big, as low as it can get, because you got a big hill to climb, and that's what the next 24 to 36 hours is for. You got to find a way to get over it and regroup and go again.
If you missed the first part, the question to him was, how's morale? And Jared Bednar answers,
as low as it can get.
Low as it can get. That's the spirit part. The second period, that's energy and that's spirit as well. The Avalanche completely lost it. And this is not, and I spent a lot of time last night on social media. Great conversation last night, by the way, after the game. But I want to make it clear. This is not about bloodlust. This is not about somebody has to pay for this. This is my take is an unemotional one. I'm looking at this. I'm saying this has run its course. The Avalanche need a new voice. This is not anti-Jared Bednar. I think he's one of the brightest coaches in the league. And if you're an Avalanche fan, you hate that it's come to this. But you look, what other direction do you go here? They already traded one franchise cornerstone. You want them to trade Landeskog, McKinnon, or Makar? That's not the route I'm going. I know a lot of people are drawing similarities between the Avalanche and the Nuggets. I refuse to believe that this team is not built to win. The Nuggets, I don't think, are built to win in the playoffs. The Avalanche are. I look up and down the roster, the previous history of these players, what they have shown. You can't convince me that this team is poorly built. That the way this team plays, the depth that they have, is not enough to win a title. I don't believe that. So what other direction do you need to go? They're maxed out on talent. We were blown away at the trade deadline when they were able to just get Nazem Kadri back. Right? To center their third line. What an embarrassment of riches that Nazem Kadri is playing on the third line for Colorado. They got career years from Marty Necas, Parker Kelly, Scott Wedgwood, to name a few. Nathan McKinnon led the league in goals. They scored as a team the most goals and gave up the fewest. Tell me where the hole in the roster is. Tell me what they're missing in terms of personnel on the ice. They're not, and the fact of the matter is, moving forward, they're not replicating this season. Not anytime soon. With all of those things I just mentioned, they're not going to replicate that. You tell me Necas is going to have another career year, that Parker Kelly is going to score another 20-plus goals? Scott Wedgwood is going to lead the league again in goals allowed average and save percentage. Nathan McKinnon's going to win the Rocket Richard Trophy back-to-back years. All of those things are going to happen. They're not. And there have been recent examples of teams that have done this, have had talented rosters, and have said the voice needs to change. We need to spark this team. We got everything we need on the ice. We need something, a catalyst to get it to where we need it to be. Vegas is now doing this twice in recent memory. They did it going to Bruce Cassidy. Now it appears they're doing it going from Bruce Cassidy to John Tortorella. Florida did this. This is how Florida became, maybe a dynasty. This is how they won back-to-back titles. They won the President's Trophy with Andrew Brunette. They bowed out in the playoffs in an unacceptable manner, and the Bill Zito and the Brain Trust in Florida said this isn't good enough. They bring in Paul Maurice, and they become back-to-back champions. Edmonton even. I know they're trying to do the Vegas thing and fire another coach in short order and Chris Knobloch to be able to bring in somebody else. But bringing in Chris Knobloch, saying bye-bye to Jay Woodcroft as quickly as they could, got them to a Stanley Cup final. Got him to a couple. So it's worked. It's worked for teams, I would argue, as or maybe slightly less talented top to bottom than the Colorado Avalanche. It can work. And I know it's risky, right? It's a risk. But the question is it a risk worth taking? Larry Bird had a famous quote where he basically said that coaches should be changed out every 3 years. For this very reason. Jared Bednar's been on the job for 10. Only John Cooper of the Lightning, who has won multiple Stanley Cups and been to another Stanley Cup final, as you will recall, John Cooper is the only coach who has been on the job longer than Jared Bednar. And once you go from Cooper to Bednar to Rob Brindamore in Carolina, the gap is like 4 years till you get to the next longest tenured coach, which coincidentally is Martin St. Louis, who is coaching against Rob Brindamore in the East. All of these teams, save for Tampa, have made coaching changes in more recent memory than the Colorado Avalanche. And the Avs have one Stanley Cup to show for it. Tampa has 2 and another Stanley Cup final. If Jared Bednar's with John Cooper, closer to him than he is everybody else, then it's not a comparison in terms of on-ice success. But I don't even want to go too far down the line of being critical, because I think that the players bear as much of the responsibility as Jared Bednar does. In fact, maybe more. Maybe more, but this is a reality of sports. The message grows stale. The message does not get heard. It does not get internalized. And Jared Bednar, for 3 games now, has been talking about how his team that is more than capable needs to play 60 minutes a night of hockey. Not 20, not 40, sometimes not even 55. They got to play 60. And this is a team that has been through it. The core of this team has climbed to the top of the mountain. Don't tell me, Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, Nazem Kadri, Cale Makar, Devon Taves, like these guys don't understand. They've never seen it before. They've done it themselves. But when Jared Bednar is reminding them, they're not hearing it. It sucks that it's come to this point, because not only is Jared Bednar one of the smartest coaches in the league, he's also just one of the best human beings in the league. And I don't love to just say that somebody should lose their job, but like, look around, watch this team. How is that not the next step? And there's no guarantee it's going to work. Right? But smart organizations, Vegas, Florida, they got their Paul Maurice, they got their Bruce Cassidy, followed by their John Tortorella. The Avalanche are a smart organization. Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic are about as good as anybody at their jobs. Don't tell me that there's not confidence that they can go out and find the right guy for this team. But you got to take that step first. You got to look at it and say, it's run its course. Chris McFarland has done everything he can to give Jared Bednar a championship caliber roster again. It's not on him. And it is on the players. Absolutely. But there's one guy here that there's one variable here that if you change it, it could spark everything else. And that's making a coaching change. Barring the Avalanche doing something that has only been done 4 other times in the history of hockey, coming back from 3-0 down. There's only been one other time in the history of hockey where a team has rallied from a 3-0 deficit at this round of the playoffs or later. And it was back in the 40s. Okay, so barring that, I think that's where we're heading. Or that's where we should be heading. Because I do have the Nuggets post end of season press conference in my head. I'm saying I can't guarantee that the Avalanche are going to make a move at head coach. I'm just telling you that's where they should be heading. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on the Game 3 collapse and the future, if there is one, for Jared Bednar. One other thing that has been useful, I suppose, in this series is we now know unequivocally who the most valuable player on the Colorado Avalanche is. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Sifting through the rubble of a historic Game 3 collapse by the Colorado Avalanche that has them on the verge of getting swept by the Vegas Golden Knights. Your thoughts very much welcome. 719-247-1313. This coming in from the 719. You hit the nail on the head. Message has gone to dead ears, similar to Malone in his last days, screaming about how no one listens to him. Got to make a change. Hopefully, Carl from DU. Now, I feel like only in Colorado, because I've seen David Carl's name thrown out a lot on social media over the last couple of days. Only in Colorado would an NHL franchise at the level that the Avalanche are look at David Carl and say, that's our guy. You get what I'm saying? Like, if I don't know how many fan bases would look at David Carl coming in, as well respected as he is. This is not an anti-David Carl. I mean, we've gotten a front row seat to what he's done at DU. But I think I think most people would look at David Carl coming from college and go, he's better with a younger rebuilding team, not taking the reins of a team that's championship or bust. But I think there's so much affinity for him here, and there's so much of a better understanding of everything that he has done that I think it would go over better here than, let's say, Edmonton. Right? Just thrown out there. I don't know how Oilers fans potentially feel about David Carl. But if you're cup or bust, taking a risk on a coach coming from the college ranks, it's a little bit higher than say a retread. I haven't quite decided yet if Carl is the guy. But I'm certainly, to your point, more amenable to it, given that I've followed him. If it was just, Wisconsin's coach or St. Cloud's coach or something like that, I go, But we know David Carl here better than most places do. I think he would be on the list. It probably wouldn't be my first choice. Because I mentioned the teams that have made coaching changes recently, right? Vegas goes from DeBoer. Could you imagine that? What about Pete DeBoer? Certainly not somebody who has been known for winning Stanley Cups, but here's the reality. Much like the Nuggets firing Michael Malone, you're not going to find a lot of guys with championship rings that are on the unemployment line. But Vegas goes from DeBoer to Cassidy. Cassidy was a retread from Boston. That works. Now they go from Cassidy to Tortorella, a guy who's been around a million years. It's working. Present tense. Florida goes from Brunette to Paul Maurice, who had to basically quit in Winnipeg. Knobloch is different than those other two, in a different group. But that would be where my mind would go. I'm kind of just fixated on the idea that the Avalanche should probably part ways with Jared Bednar once this series is over. And I haven't really gone past that too far to see who might be available. But to me, you got to put one foot in front of the other. You got to say, this is it. And you could put together a wish list, certainly. But you got to take the first step. And you got to say, we're open for business. We're hiring. And I think that's what the Avalanche need to do here. Shifting gears here, because something else has become quite clear to me and I think it's become clear to you as well over this series. Nathan MacKinnon might win the Hart Trophy, and he's very deserving. Right? I don't want to take that away from him, but he could very well win the Hart Trophy. He's a finalist for the league's most valuable player. But this series has made it blatantly obvious that the most valuable player on the Colorado Avalanche, emphasis on the valuable, is Cale Makar. They barely functioned the first 2 games without him. Like, they can't do anything that they normally do without Cale Makar. And his return, plus a dash of desperation, and for 20 minutes, you're like, this is the Avalanche team I know. This is the Avalanche team I was expecting when this series started. And tomorrow night will be fascinating, to see how, the effect sustains. I mean, they're going to be even more desperate, so that's part of it. But you just watch this team. They function so much better with Cale Makar, even though Cale Makar was not even close to 100% last night. Like, you saw it as well as I did. He was very reticent to get hit. I think he called himself a bystander or a passenger through most of the evening. Like, it didn't seem like he trusted it. But even Cale Makar at whatever percent that is, and the Avalanche could do so much more than they had done the previous 2 games. They have no chance to break down Vegas in the attacking zone without him. And you saw in the third period, like, they couldn't even do it with Cale Makar. But again, this version of Cale Makar will only get you so far. He's got to get healthier. But they can't, at any point during the game, once Vegas, buttons down the hatches on any given possession or during a period, the Avalanche can't do anything, especially on the power play. I mean, the power play was what it was this year. It's even worse when Cale Makar's not on it. It's unrecognizable with Devon Taves running the point rather than Cale Makar. And when Jared Bednar talked about having Cale Makar back, the biggest thing that he emphasized was what their power play is when Cale Makar, even at less than 100%, is back on the ice.
The biggest difference, like I noticed tonight for us, is that blue line ability and being able to help create some scoring chances against a team that's, good in their coverage up top and make it difficult up top to find shooting lanes. He just has the feet to be able to, and the shot and ability to be able to help us in that area, which he did a lot tonight.
Yeah, they're just, nobody on the Avalanche has that wiggle that Cale Makar does. Nobody else on the Avalanche blue line has the ability to have his puck find the net despite all the traffic in front like Cale Makar. I said this the other day on the show, when Ray, my producer, asks me, what it put this in Nuggets terms. I'm like, Cale Makar getting hurt is like Jamal Murray getting hurt for the Denver Nuggets. That I had that wrong. I had that flipped. I had that flip-flop. Cale Makar is Jokic. Nathan MacKinnon is Jamal Murray. And this isn't, let's tear down Nathan MacKinnon here. That's not what I'm saying. Because the Avalanche need Nathan MacKinnon. As you saw in that third period, when he was hobbled, they were even less effective than they had been when he was healthy. We know what Gabriel Landeskog means to this team. This is not saying that, let's decrease the value of one of these players. Those 3 players are the core of this team, and they need all 3 of them. But there's a pecking order here. And just like everything the Nuggets do is ran through Nikola Jokic, is made possible by Nikola Jokic. It's the same thing with the Avalanche and Cale Makar. And that has been made abundantly clear. The issue is we just don't see this a lot. Cale Makar before this series missed one playoff game, which, by the way, they lost a couple years ago to Seattle when he was suspended. They lost that one too. But one game, who knows? Cale Makar is the most valuable player on the Colorado Avalanche. But with that being said, one of the most disappointing things about this series, and it even continued into last night when Cale Makar was on the ice, it's like not a single Avalanche player has stepped up to help out Cale Makar, to account for him being out. Not one. Tell me over the last two games, one Avalanche player that you would say, you know what, he raised his game. And one wouldn't be enough. It takes multiple guys, right? It takes a village. It takes a team. But name me one guy, especially when Cale Makar was out, the first two games of the series, tell me one Avalanche player who stepped up in his absence. In fact, you can't even give me one player who stepped up. I can give you a half a dozen who got worse because Cale Makar, at least everybody on the blue line, every defenseman that the Avalanche had didn't step up. They got worse. Devon Taves doesn't even know where to be on the ice at times without Cale Makar. And he's supposed to be the bedrock of their defense. He's supposed to be the one that allows Cale Makar to do his thing. Take away Cale Makar and look at the way that Devon Taves is playing in this series. I mean, the blue line is completely lost without him, but the ripple effects to the forward group, Nathan McKinnon, Marty Necas, like everyone is impacted. I mean, in just that first period, you saw the best of Scott Wedgwood. Was it a coincidence that he had Cale Makar? But not one Avalanche player stepped up in the absence of Cale Makar. And yeah, we're focused on game 3. Let's talk about game 2 for a minute. If anybody steps up for the Colorado Avalanche in place of Cale Makar, especially on the offensive end of the ice, we're talking about the Avs being down 2-1 in this series. Both ends of the ice. Cale Makar means everything to this team, and he's going to get $20 million on his next contract per year, and he's going to be worth every penny. Because let's not forget this, Cale Makar is 27 years old. He's one of the younger Avalanche players. Hate that this is the situation where we're, discussing this and realizing all of this, but now we know. Now we know. As brilliant as Nathan McKinnon is, as much of the heart and soul of this team as Gabriel Landeskog is, they can't do anything without Cale Makar against a team like Vegas, right? On a random Tuesday night against the Kraken, sure. But it is stark, the difference. You saw 6 periods without Cale. The first period with him back, even at half strength, 3/4 strength, whatever that was last night, makes a world of difference. Now, again, it couldn't sustain itself through the game. But the difference with him in the lineup was massive. And the only chance that the Avalanche have to make this interesting, let's not go not even a single step past interesting in terms of this series. To make this series interesting, Cale Makar's shoulder has got to double in terms of how good it is. I mean, it's got to exponentially get better in the next 36 hours. Now, 24 hours, 26 hours, whatever it might be. That's their only chance. Cale Makar's got to get back to 100% of Cale Makar. And we thought it would be detrimental, and we thought 0% of Cale Makar would be a problem. But, man, in this series, they need 100%. And even then, you're still down 3-0. 719-247-1313, back after this. I think Avalanche fans are ever growing in numbers, saying that it may be time to make a change with the Colorado Avalanche at head coach. And that's only one half of the equation. Right? Because you got to get it right. You know, I could talk about Florida. I could talk about Vegas. I mean, I can even talk about Edmonton. And I think some Oilers fans will say that Knobloch didn't really work. But they got theirs right. But I just, Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland, I just think they know. The look that Joe Sakic had on his face after game 2, like the look of disgust. I think he knows that this is the way to go. I really do. But here's one thing that I was talking with somebody on X last night about this. One thing that I wonder if the Avalanche bring this up as ammunition to say we're keeping Jared Bednar. Now, every playoff exit that they have had in recent memory has involved some sort of a crisis. 21, it was the suspension to Nazem Kadri. Right? Year after the Stanley Cup, it was Nichushkin. Year after, it was Nichushkin again. Of course, Gabriel Landeskog, his absence was an undercurrent of that. Now you have Cale Makar and maybe Nathan MacKinnon, although, like, that's one thing. I see a lot of discourse surrounding the third goal for Vegas, or I see a lot of discourse around, you know, the Nathan MacKinnon injury, and I'm like, the damage was already done. Like, it's inexcusable for you to even let Vegas get 2 goals, let alone a third. And yeah, by the time Nathan MacKinnon got, it was already over. Be honest, after the second period, did you not think that the game was over? That Vegas was going to win? I certainly felt like Vegas was going to win. So a lot of stuff that's piling on here at the end, and it's like, look, everything that went wrong with the Avs, they could have controlled. And there's no reason that Vegas scoring a third goal even needed to come to pass. After they scored the first one, that's where you hit them with the counterpunch. And you say, all right, let's get back to our game now. And they never did. So I'm sorry. Maybe Josh Manson was tripped. You want to talk about falling on deaf ears? It falls on deaf ears. Why'd you let him get 2 goals in a game that Vegas could have been content to let go, given the work that they had done? But now you have Cale Makar. So it's injury, suspension, absence of Valeri Nichushkin, Nazem Kadri, Cale Makar, and Gabriel Landeskog as the undercurrent of every playoff loss the year before they won the Cup and every year after they won the Cup. I wonder if that's used. I wonder if they say, well, if we had this, and you're not going to like it. I'm just spitballing that maybe they might say something to that. But doesn't that also speak to maybe having a guy who is maybe his message fall? Like, because if the Avs are all that they are cracked up to be, right? Shouldn't they account for one of those things? Shouldn't they be able to compensate for one of those things? I'm just saying one. Right? So make up for the Kadri suspension in 2021. Okay, you say, well, they weren't built for the playoffs back then. Fair enough. How about the next year when you lose Valerian Nichushkin and you get bounced in the first round by Seattle? You can't overcome that? Okay, you say you can't overcome the loss of Gabriel Landeskog. Fair enough. You got Cale Makar back last night, and you still collapsed. So not one of these the Avalanche could have compensated for. I know all of these seasons are ending in a crisis in the absence of a player, but shouldn't this team be capable of overcoming something? More after this. Welcome in. Appreciate you stopping by on this Monday, and a holiday, no less. Shouts to those of you watching the show anywhere you scroll. And while we're on the subject, if you want to follow me, it'd be cool. At Gingerly Tweets on X and at Gingerwatch on Instagram. We can continue the conversation at even outside of this daily show, like many of you did last night in the wake of the Avs Game 3 collapse, up 3-0 after the first period, 3-3 after 2, and a 5-3 final score. And now the Avalanche are on the verge of being swept, which is of all the different scenarios that I have entertained, this is probably the least likely. I mean, it has to be, right? Is there any other scenario in this series that is less likely going into it than Vegas sweeping the series? Unthinkable. With or without Cale Makar, unthinkable. And yet, that's the exact position that the Avalanche find themselves in. Present tense. We may be speaking in the past tense here this time on Wednesday. But as far as the game goes last night, here's Jared Bednar on what changed in the second period.
Everything. Yeah, first 9 minutes, it was like, kind of looked like portions of game 1 for me and parts of game 2 where we were mismanaging the puck, like breakouts. And then, like, they just got more competitive, and we didn't stay with that intensity for me for 9 minutes. And, you know, a little bit of communication and some talk, and, you know, we just didn't dig in and match their intensity at the start of the second quick enough.
How is that possible? Like what Jared Bednar just said there. How is that possible? Do you not understand? I mean, it's one of the universal truths of hockey at every level. You punch a team in the mouth in period number 1, they're going to go to the dressing room and they're going to come at you in the second period with everything they've got. How did they not know that Vegas was going to push back? I know it was only, 7 periods of hockey to that point in this series, but how many more reminders of who this Vegas team is do you need? How did you not expect them to push back? And then to let it sustain for 9 minutes. That's pretty much half the period that the Avs weren't able to get back to their game. I mean, how does something like that happen? How do you not go into the second period understanding that Vegas is going to give you one, and you've watched enough hockey. How many times do you see this? One team dominates period number 1. The team that got dominated comes out really mad. They push. And if you can push them back, then they go away. And I don't know if Vegas completely goes away. But they're not. If the Avs just stay with their game, if they just push back, Vegas isn't coming back to win that game. I'll give them enough credit to say maybe they keep fighting till the very end, but it would be of no use. You've seen it a million times watching the sport, or 1,000, or however many hockey games you've watched. You know the other team is going to come out with everything they've got in the second. If you could show them, no, that's not happening, then that's it. Then you got them. And is that not something that's discussed in the locker room? I know that Jared Bednar knows it. I know he does. And I may think that it's time for the Avalanche to make a coaching change, but I want to make it very clear that I'm not putting Jared Bednar at the top of the list of who needs to be blamed. I'm just saying the effect that we see throughout professional sports that happens to the longer coaches tenured there, especially with a core group that has remained intact. Like, we can talk about some of the newer pieces around this team. The majority of the Avalanche roster has been in place for a while. This is a naturally occurring phenomenon that it's not our finest quality as human beings, but it happens. Start to tune out the authority figure in the room. And also, getting a new voice in the room opens the ears a little bit. It's not just sports. It happens in a lot of different walks of life. But that's where we are. But I believe that Jared Bednar is saying what needs to be said to this team. I just don't know if the team's listening to him. Meanwhile, what does a win like that say about the Vegas Golden Knights, John Tortorella, head coach?
This is a game where we showed some balls. It is, and I want them to feel it for a little bit, as far as what they just did against a really good hockey club. But then we get back to work tomorrow.
I mean, I'm not going to say it, but if Vegas winning that game means what John Tortorella says it means, what does that say about the Avalanche? Right? Zero-sum game here. I've been toying with this idea over the last few hours. See what you think about this. Is there a chance that this Vegas Golden Knights team, this version of the Golden Knights, is actually a better team than the Colorado Avalanche? I said going into the series, Vegas could be better than Minnesota. We got so stuck on the season as a whole, and 8 games is such a small sample size, plus a couple of playoff series against teams that were just happy to be there in Utah and Anaheim. And it's like, I don't expect anybody with great authority to be able to say, oh yeah, Vegas is definitely better. How could you know that for sure? And that's where I was before this series began. Like, I think they might be better than Minnesota, but I don't know. Now, unequivocally, they are. Could they actually be better than the Colorado Avalanche? Guess we'll see where Vegas ends up. If they end up winning the whole thing. And this team really didn't come out of nowhere necessarily. Again, they were a team that was mentioned in the same breath as the Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. At the beginning of the year, they added Mitch Marner, one of the most talented players in the league. It's just things didn't go right with Bruce Cassidy, and now they are going right. Because this is the credit I want to extend to Vegas. At least they're on equal footing. I think the Cale Makar injury, I think you have to say that maybe Vegas, well, not maybe, Vegas is better than the Avalanche sans Cale Makar. if Cale Makar is healthy, are the Vegas Golden Knights truly better than the Colorado Avalanche? That's more of a debate. There's no debate that they're better than the Avalanche without Cale. But this Vegas team, it's impressive. And we know they have the championship pedigree. They have the right makeup. They have the talent. I mean, the depth of Vegas has been massive. And the depth for the Colorado Avalanche has been almost non-existent. And again, it's not a great opponent to be losing to if you're Jared Bednar, if you want to keep your job. Because they made the change that they made with 8 games to go, and it may propel them to a Stanley Cup. But I mean, you just go through it, the depth of Vegas and the goaltending of Vegas. And I mean, they have Eichel and Marner. Would you say Eichel and Marner in the aggregate is better than McKinnon and Natchez? McKinnon's the best player in that group. But if you add Eichel and Marner, and all of this is stuff that on paper at the beginning of the season we were talking about. Not Carter Hart, but everything else. And then the Pacific Division was the Pacific Division, and we kind of ignored them and didn't really follow. And then they make the change with John Tortorella, and you're looking at this team and saying, I mean, at the very least, they're on pretty much equal footing with Colorado. But look, even if you say Vegas is actually a better team, and it just took them firing Bruce Cassidy and putting John Tortorella in charge and putting Carter Hart in net, that's what ultimately put this team on above the Colorado Avalanche. Even if you say that, the second period of last night's game is inexcusable. Leaving the door ajar for 40 minutes in game 2 after you scored the first goal is unacceptable. The Avs being down 3-0 in this series, there's no way Vegas is that much better of a team than Colorado. Like, that's not possible. What I'm saying is, if we restarted this series, right, and the Avs magically worked out some of the kinks here, could Vegas best Colorado in a 7-game series with their talent? I think that question is on the table. Why the Avalanche are down 3-0 in this series has a lot to do with how good Vegas is, but has a lot to do with what's wrong with the Colorado Avalanche right now. Losing game 2 the way they did, losing game 3 the way they did, that's not Vegas being that much better than Colorado. But this Vegas team, they're on the same level. I think you have to give that much to them. And they'll look to sweep the Colorado Avalanche tomorrow night. Later start, 7 o'clock. You could hear it on Extra Sports 1300 or watch it at the Brass Tap on Bass Pro Drive with $3.50 pints of Coors Light, Coors Banquet, Miller Lite, and Mountain Time. Sports, Spirit, Social, the Brass Tap. Coming up next, because it's not all on Jared Bednar, I think we have to wonder, has the Mikko Rantanen trade actually done what the Avalanche were trying to do with it? It's tough when you look at the players that they got after trading away Rantanen. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Your thoughts on the Avs and their Game 3 collapse and the series as a whole that is one game away from being over just like that. Season over, President's Trophy, maybe a Hart Trophy for Nathan MacKinnon, career years from multiple players, all of it coming crashing down in one foul swoop against the Vegas Golden Knights. And I said on social media after game 2, I tweeted this out. I said think about this, that 2 things can happen within a week. The Vegas Golden Knights could win a Stanley Cup and the Oklahoma City Thunder could win the NBA title. I mean, think about that and think about the sports world and how they would react if both of those things happened in the span of a week. There would be mass quitting of sports. Like some people would just be like, I'm out. This is, I mean, the reaction on social media would be akin to what I witnessed in the movie theater after watching Avengers Infinity War. Like, not to throw him under the bus, he was much younger than he was now. My son is crying. There are people that are booing. There are people yelling, people asking for their money back. It was not a fun scene. It was not. When Thanos snapped away all the Avengers. If Vegas and Oklahoma City both win their respective leagues titles, there are going to be people reacting that exact same way when it comes to sports. I'm out. That's terrible. I quit. And there's no guarantee. There's not a promise of endgame. Right? It would be back-to-back for OKC. It would be 2 in 4 years? 3 years? For Vegas? There's no guarantee that the good guys are coming back the next year in the NBA or in the NHL to stop these 2 teams. You knew there would be endgame and you're like, I don't think this is going to hold. I don't think these Avengers are going to be just gone forever. Who knows how long Vegas and OKC will keep it going. I know, dark days, but performance like last night, your mind goes to some dark places. Illustrating how much the hockey world would hate Vegas getting past Colorado and then getting past the winner of the Eastern Conference and hoisting the Stanley Cup. Here's Chris talking about, as a fan of the CBJ, which, by the way, the CBJ, acceptable, right, Chris? Like, that's what people say about the Columbus Blue Jackets. One thing that I cannot stand watching this series, nobody says the VGK. Who calls them that? VGK, it's like calling MLB the MLB. Who says the VGK? Sean McDonough says the VGK. It's like nails on a chalkboard every time I hear it. And I don't know that I even hate the Golden Knights as much as most people do. I just hate the VGK. I don't like it. Anyway, Chris continues. I still hate that they changed expansion draft rules to make teams better. Whether it's Vegas or Seattle, they're already good, if not great teams. Columbus is in 26 years of futility with 1 playoff series win. And yes, this Vegas team was born on third base. But they're a great, and I think they tweaked some of the rules once Seattle got going. But Seattle, to your point, Chris, good right away. But those 2 teams, and I'll give credit to Vegas. I'm not going to expect you to. Like, you hate on Vegas. I'm all here for it. But even when you look at these two teams, they're both, to an extent, born on third base as franchises. Okay? Seattle had that 1 year, and then they've gone down the tubes. Now they're terrible. They fired Haxtell. They haven't been back to the playoffs since. Like Vegas, here's the one thing that I have to give them credit for. They have taken what they've been given that they did not earn. I will agree with you on that. They did not earn what the roster that they got in year one. But look at what they've been able to do with it. They went to a Stanley Cup final year one. Even Seattle didn't do that. They win a cup few years later. They've always been in contention. They've always been around it. Now they're one win away from another Stanley Cup final. Like, the credit that Vegas deserves, even if you don't want to give it to them. And again, I'm not here trying to say, be impressed and everything, but you just got to look at it and say Vegas has done a very good job with what they were given, as opposed to, a fellow expansion team in recent memory, which is Seattle, which has taken what they were given and squandered it. It went right down the tubes. They've been able to sustain it. And they might get a couple of cups in 3 appearances. I mean, think about that. Not just if you're a Columbus fan, think about if you're a Colorado fan. Vegas, by the end of this year, may have eliminated Colorado twice, appeared in 3 Stanley Cup finals, and won 2 of them. And the Avs have been to and won 1. That's kind of shocking. Almost as shocking as the premise that the Carolina Hurricanes will win a Stanley Cup as a byproduct of trading Mikko Rantanen before the Colorado Avalanche do. Carolina had Mikko Rantanen for 10 seconds, and they might parlay it into a Stanley Cup before the Avalanche do. That's wild to think about, but that's a reality, potentially. And I don't even think Carolina didn't get as much as Colorado did in return. And also, by the way, Colorado was able to, the Mikko Rantanen trade, it's not just what they got for Mikko, it's also what they've been able to do with the cap flexibility. And right now, the guy that I guess you'll say when it matters has paid the most dividends is Jack Drury. They could have gotten Jack Drury for almost anything. They didn't even trade Mikko Rantanen to get Jack Drury. I mean, the butterfly effect or the ripple effect of the Mikko Rantanen trade, it's not just Drury and Natchez, but it's Brock Nelson. Right? Let's just stop there. You could go down the list, and maybe even there's a connection between the Mikko Rantanen trade and getting Nazem Kadri back. But let's just stop there. Because it was the 2 moves that were a part of the Mikko Rantanen trade. It was Drury and Natchez, and then it was opening up room to be able to get Brock Nelson. Marty Natchez, and he had a very good assist last night. Like, give him credit for that. That was his first point of this series. First point. Brock Nelson, no points. -4 rating. For the entire playoffs, he has 2 goals and 1 assist. Marty Necas has only 1 goal, coming off of a career year in scoring goals. 1 goal throughout these entire playoffs. The pieces that they got in return or because of trading Mikko Rantanen are right at the top of the list of the guys that are not pulling their weight in this series. And you wonder at times when a guy gets kind of stuck, like Brock Nelson and Marty Necas have in their career, like not being able to advance, you start to wonder, is it the team around them? Or is it them? Or are they part of it? I don't want to put all the ills of the Carolina Hurricanes or New York Islanders on Brock Nelson and Marty Necas. But are they an active participant or are they being dragged down by guys around them? Well, here on a better team than I think either of these two have ever played on, when it matters the most, neither one has produced. And I say going into the series, if Brock Nelson holds down the fort defensively and slows down the line of Vegas that he faces, then I'm good. I don't need him to produce. There are other guys that can produce. Well, 2 things. One, that can't be true anymore. Like Brock Nelson would have to lock down Jack Eichel or William Karlsson, and he would have to produce because at this point it's all hands on deck. Everybody's got to do everything to have a chance here. But I don't think Brock Nelson has even done the first part of his job. I mean, -4 rating, that tells you that his line has conceded goals. More goals than they've scored. So his line hasn't been producing at the level it needs to. And Marty Necas is not scoring the goals. Say what you will about, Mikko Rantanen. But there will be plenty of series that the Avs ended up bowing out in where Mikko Rantanen had better numbers than Marty Necas does. And this is not a Chris McFarland messed up. That's not what I'm getting at. I actually think Chris McFarland made, all told, created a better roster having traded Mikko Rantanen than what they had when they traded Mikko Rantanen. They are a better roster because of it. And I had my doubts about that Mikko Rantanen trade. I really did, but you get Necas and Drury, and you're able to free up space to get Brock Nelson. Like Chris McFarland didn't mess up here. I don't think the Avalanche are worse than they were before. But it's not translating. It didn't translate last year in the Dallas series. And it's not translating now. And I gave Brock Nelson and Necas a pass last year saying, they come in halfway through the year. How do you expect them to, be able to make a huge impact in the playoffs with half a season, if that, under their belt? They've had this whole season. And Marty Necas had a career year. Brock Nelson had one of his better years. And virtually nothing in the playoffs. Certainly virtually nothing in this series. So those guys have not stepped up and had the impact that they were brought in to have. And look, there's a lot of that going around with this Avalanche team. You don't lose the way they've lost these 3 games and pin it on one person or 2 people or 3. It's everybody right now. But 2 points between the 2 of them and a net rating of -3. Your 2 top 6 players, 2 important top 6 players. One is the second line center that you've been looking for since Nazem Kadri took the money and ran after the Stanley Cup year. And a guy that's supposed to be, Robin to McKinnon's Batman, and neither one of them are producing. And you look at Vegas, and it's Howden, and it's Carlson, and it's some defenseman that hasn't scored in 4 years in the NHL. Like, what the Avalanche were doing the last series against Minnesota, where we were marveling, you get a goal, and you get a goal, and you get a goal, 16 different players. That's what Vegas is doing to Colorado now. In Colorado, like the depth that they supposedly had, that I think they have, which goes to my point, like they probably need a different voice. They need somebody that's going to cut through to these guys. And I've said it multiple times during this show today, and I'll continue to say it well into the offseason. You can't tell me that this roster that Chris McFarland has put together is incapable of winning a championship. I just don't believe that. But these guys aren't producing. And in the 2 games that Cale Makar has been out, there wasn't a single player that elevated his game. Not a single one. That's not on Jared Bednar, but maybe somebody's voice other than Jared Bednar's. Like, have you heard John Tortorella in a locker room? Chris, back me up on this. You had him in Columbus. Isn't that the kind of voice that you feel like maybe the Avalanche need right now? A little bit more fire and brimstone. 719-24/7-1313. Back after this. Must win tomorrow night for the Avs if they're going to keep their season alive. Not ideal timing after a collapse like they had in Game 3. Here's Jared Bednar on how he thinks his team will respond. This was immediately following last night's epic collapse.
We're not there yet. I don't know. Everyone's down and in the dumps right now. And we, like I said, that's what the next 36 hours are for, to get our team back to where our focus is in the right place. And seems like a tough hill to climb, clearly, obviously, especially against a team like Vegas. But I mean, you just got to break it down. Shift at a time, 5 at a time, period at a time, game at a time. It's kind of what we've been talking about for the last couple, because of those stretches that we're having that are hurting us.
But at the end there, doesn't that sum up everything we've discussed today? The message to his team, trailing 3-0 in the series, given how they left the door open for Vegas in Game 2 and how they collapsed in Game 3, the message is the same. The message is not being heard, is not being internalized. It cannot be the same. I'm not saying it's the wrong message, but how can it be the same message that you've been delivering over the past 2 games, and that's the performance that your team has put out on the ice? There is a distinct possibility, if not probability, that Jared Bednar is coaching his last game for the Colorado Avalanche tomorrow night. My advice to him, because there's a path here that we can discuss if we even get close to this point. If the Avs battle back and force a Game 7, what then with Jared Bednar? I think for a lot of people, I'm not saying necessarily for me, but I think for a lot of people, it would change how they feel about what the Avs should do moving forward. Because it may show that the message is still landing. But what I would say in the interim, because we are a long way from a Game 7, what I would say is it may behoove Jared Bednar to maybe change up the message a little bit. I don't know what to. I'm not an NHL coach. But what is that definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, which is not the definition of insanity in the dictionary, but we say it is. It is a form of insanity, I would say. You've given the same message for 2 games now, and your team has not listened. So I guess you could say third time's the charm, or you could say, I got to come at this a different way. I got to figure out some way to communicate and get through to this team. Because after the first 20 minutes of last night, there was no way on earth I thought the last 2 periods would be the way they were. There was no way. This team internalized the message for a period, and Vegas maybe was a bit fat and happy after taking a 2-0 series lead in Denver, which is somewhat to be expected. And you had a perfect period in many ways. Right? Scott Wedgwood making big saves. You put 3 goals on the board, just exactly the way you want to start. You could have asked me right then and there as the 2 teams were going to the dressing room what I thought was going to happen. And I could have told you 5 different scenarios, and not a single one of them would have been Vegas is going to come back with 3 in this period, and the Avs are just going to wilt away. And now they're dealing with McKinnon being hurt. And it's the same it's the same conversation as we had with Cale Makar. Jared Bednar said a couple of days ago, only Cale knows. And if Cale's good to go, feels good to go, he's going to play, which I thought was odd from Jared Bednar. I know he wasn't throwing Cale Makar under the bus, but there were plenty of people who thought he was. I don't know that I would have, it was honest, and I don't think it was at all meant to motivate Cale Makar or to throw him under the bus. But there are enough non-native listeners that heard that and went, whoa, what is Jared Bednar doing here? So, and you got to understand, you're on the biggest stage of your season. Maybe choose your words a bit more carefully, but I understood. I understood what Jared Bednar was saying. And now I'm seeing clips from the Avalanche players today basically saying the same thing about Nathan MacKinnon. And I agree. If he's good to go, he's going to play. And the guy tried to gut it out last night on one leg, was trying to give the Avs something. And he couldn't. He just could not. But with an injured Nathan MacKinnon and with everybody else on the ice, the moment where you're just, if you didn't think they were going to lose before, right, after seeing Vegas erase a 3-goal deficit, after seeing Vegas ultimately take the lead, if you still thought that there was a chance for the Avalanche, that last power play had to make you go, yeah, that's it. It was a must-convert power play. You had to get a goal there. And they looked completely out of sorts and did not get one single shot in on Carter Hart. And that's the thing that, one of the things I should say, I should stop. There's so many things to think after a game like that. The fact that they did not sustain the puck pressure or the pressure on Carter Hart throughout the game, knowing that there was a chance that Carter Hart might break. And you would put Tortorella in a very difficult position where he's got to figure out who the best guy moving forward is, can't let this train go off the rails. Like, so much doubt could have been potentially placed in the minds of a goalie in Carter Hart that has never been to this point, never played games nearly as big as this one in his entire life. Game on the line, you're on the power play, and you don't get one shot on goal. That encapsulated what the last 40 minutes of that hockey game were. First 20 minutes, Carter Hart is fighting for his life. The next 40, he's comfortable. And man, that third period, I mean, the Avs couldn't do anything. And it just speaks to anything less than 100% Cale Makar. They can't do anything. Vegas just packed it in, and the Avalanche could not find anything in terms of getting pucks to the net or putting Carter Hart under any sort of duress. Speaking of goaltenders, I'll throw this out there, and we'll get more into it tomorrow. I go with Mackenzie Blackwood. Not because, it's kind of like what I'm saying about Jared Bednar. Scott Wedgwood has been fine, nothing more. Nothing more. It may be slightly below fine. Okay, he has not been exceptional. He's been outplayed by his counterpart, Carter Hart. Carter Hart's been better. But this is not even about Scott Wedgwood. He is far from the reason why the Avalanche are down 3-0 in this series. I just think you need to try and catch lightning in a bottle. And hope that Mackenzie Blackwood, who, by the way, in terms of his contract, has a future in Colorado, Scott Wedgwood doesn't. Scott Wedgwood's contract is up after this year. Mackenzie Blackwood is on an extension. I didn't think we'd get to this point in a variety of different ways, but I didn't think we get to the point where I'm just saying, throw out Mackenzie Blackwood and see what happens. I mean, especially if Cale Makar doesn't progress before tomorrow night and he's about at the same level and Nathan McKinnon can't give it a go. I mean, what other buttons can you possibly push? And that's kind of my overall feeling about this team. There are not many buttons that they can push. The roster is the roster. And I think it's a good roster, but at this point, they're just not responding. So Mackenzie Blackwood, throw him out there. Maybe he morphs into Patrick Waugh for one game. So it's not about Wedgwood deserves to lose his job, just the same as with Jared Bednar doesn't necessarily deserve to lose his job. But you got to find something. You got to find a spark somewhere. We'll talk more about Game 4, of course, tomorrow on the show. Appreciate your patronage today. Coming up next, you'll hear more of my thoughts on last night's epic Avalanche collapse in Game 3.